Happy birthday, darling baby boy. You're old enough to know the truth.
I have a dad from a city called New York.
Arlo is such a happy and optimistic character, infectious in a way. Who or what did you model his emotions after, and how did he help you write the story?
Well, Arlo, you're right. Is this like beaming, bright, positive little guy, and that character really propelled everything for me. Like before there was even a story, before there were other characters, it was like having this idea of this. There was something about these sketches I was doing, a while back, of this little alligator boy that just felt so positive and so pure and so delightful, and so I kind of wanted to tell that story about this like really truly optimistic, most like someone who goes out into the world with heartful, the world is a good place. And so it's like he's kind of a part of me. He's like everything I want to be, but like and hopefully, and I think probably most of us, like it's everything we want to be, but like we fall short consistently, and we face challenges. He faces challenges throughout the movie and meets characters throughout the movie who are probably more like versions of ourselves, where they're faulted and they're broken and they don't believe in themselves at times, and they've got all sorts of deficiencies, and he comes in and fills these cracks for these characters with all this optimism,
right?
And in turn, when he needs them, they're there for him. And I think that's really the like heart of the narrative, more so than goes to find his father. Like that's the plot, but this like it's about this character who really like bring joy and optimism into the world, and you will find that return to you.
So you have a long history in animation, both on very prominent projects and TV. What are your origins in the business, and how did those experiences culminate to Arlo?
So yeah, I started out as a production assistant at DreamWorks Animation back in my early 20s, and I was brought on to work on a movie that got shelved, and then they said, well, Shrek needs help. Can you help out with Shrek? And I was like, are you kidding? Dream come true. I had been like working in restaurants up to that point, just trying, like clawing at the industry, at sending out this. I had sent out a resume. It had been a year. And then DreamWorks called back and said, hey, we're interviewing production assistants. I interviewed for a month. And then I finally got hired. And then it was like, oh, that project's not happening. So I was just like, wait, what is happening? And by all fate, I ended up working with the Shrek group. And it was kind of, a skyrocket trajectory from there. I studied underneath all these fantastic artists. A lot of them really helped me define my craft and figure out who what my personality was. And so, and I think you see a lot of that in Arlo, in this group of misfit characters. There's a slight irreverence. There's a really, like, I think what works so well in Shrek that hopefully works well in Arlo is that the characters are so well defined that if you put any two of them in a bus or in a whatever, there's going to be some dialogue that's worth hearing. Like they're going to have they're such big personalities that you're going to want to spend time to hear and they're going to play off each other also differently. So that's really where I started, and then found my way into TV, and I brought that TV experience into this because at the end of the day it's a 2D animated feature. It's basically essentially it's an indie film. We weren't a massive CG budget. We found Titmouse Animation Studio in Hollywood and Vancouver, and they do a lot of television, and we kind of broke their pipeline apart and figured out how to put it together to make a movie.
Speaking of 2D, like the classic movie and TV cartoons of the mid 20th century, what is different about the creation of 2D now as opposed to those old pen and ink days?
Yeah, well, so you have different tools, right? I think that's the biggest thing. I think, well, too, you have different tools, which are the computer-aided tools, which can be great, and they can also kind of change some of the handcrafted. That we're always striving to get this like handcrafted feel, and so I think a lot of times, you look at Arlo from scene to scene, he's not perfectly on model, but I would prefer that if he's alive. If he really feels like he's moving and he's alive, then I would take the drawings that are a little off of each other than to have a perfectly on model character who just kind of puppets, right? So there's that. And I think the talent pool is a little different now because, artists are growing up in a different way. They're being trained in a different way. But I don't think that 2D animation is necessarily like as much of a focus in as it was maybe 30 years ago if you went to study animation. So much is about CG now. So yeah, we had a lot of fun kind of figuring out a lot of these animators had never worked on a movie before. A lot of the storyboard artists had never worked on a movie before, and a lot of the art team had never worked on a movie. So we just I worked on a movie about 10 years ago, or I worked on like 8 movies about 10 years ago. We'll figure it out,
Well, it's nice that you're allowing people in because you got an in like that. That's really nice.
Yeah, totally. You got to take in new talent. It's where it's at. I mean, I think, let them surprise you. For me as a director, the best thing is to embrace young talent, educate them, work with them, have them bring their ideas to the table because, you want something new. And that's what I was hoping with Arlo is like, there's a classic feel to it. It has this 2D feel. We wanted it to feel like I did a lot of research and spent a lot of time looking at the mid-century Disney movies in terms of, because I thought the design I thought we could make something that looked elegant and still do it within our constraints. And that felt like a good pinpoint for me. But then to do something that was fresh and that felt modern musically and all of these things. So hopefully, you have to embrace young talent, let them have a voice.
So the philosophy of Arlo is one of inclusion. I'm not going to talk about the biology of the film, but the inclusion, despite any differences or handicaps. When creating the distinct characters that Arlo develops into a family, what traits did you want to emphasize to say, it's not bad to be this way?
I think that these characters are as extraordinary on the outside as they are on the inside. And so there's something really interesting about keeping the world around them fairly grounded, keeping the physics of the world fairly grounded. And I think this was something that I was very influenced by the Jim Henson stuff of, the Muppets, etc., where you've got these characters who are so extreme and they've got such extreme personalities. And then they're surrounded by normal people who are kind of like, okay. And that's the audience, we're all kind of looking at them like, this is, the talking alligator just walked into the ice cream shop. Okay, this is normal. You're trying to tell yourself this is fine. So I wanted them to be just off kilter, like not so extreme that they felt like magical creatures, so that they still retained some qualities. They still felt like slightly, just slightly skewed one way or another, some more than others. And so, but it was really about telling, they have these extraordinary personalities, they have these extraordinary bodies that they walk in, and yet they don't necessarily have the value for themselves until they sort of meet each other, learn about each other, and start to say like, no, but I like you, but I like you. You're great.
Yeah.
But I don't see that in myself. But it's like, but we should all see that in ourselves, So I think that's part of like that, why how they kind of glom together and become this fascinating group of characters.
This is Patrick McDonald for HollywoodChicago.com. Copyright 2021.